for joining us on this edition of Business Daily. Coming to you live from Seol, I'm Ji-yoon. We have a lot coming up today, so let's get started with the day's highlights. China's shrinking workforce due to its aging society is expected to have big consequences on the country's economy, and Korea is no exception. With exports sagging and consumption slowing, the Korean government has unveiled a set of fresh stimulus measures to boost economic growth. But first, China's central bank pushed up the strength of the yuan by the most in 2 months in an effort to fend off bearish concerns against its currency. The People's Bank of China raised its daily reference rate by nearly 0.16% on Thursday, settling the yuan at a 4-week high of 6.54 against the greenback. Experts say this lends credence to policymakers who have denied the country was favoring a depreciation to boost the economy. Since the start of the new year, China's currency has lost more than 1.5% against the dollar. Its foreign exchange reserves tumbled to $3.3 trillion as of the end of December, as the PBOC intervened to support the falling yuan. U.S. crude futures soared to over 8% on Wednesday, mainly due to a tumble in the U.S. dollar. On the New York Mercantile Exchange, West Texas Intermediate for March delivery settled at $32.28 a barrel, up over $2 or 8.03% from the previous day's close. The price rebounded with the weakening dollar and energy traders' growing support for an emergency OPEC meeting aimed at addressing oversupply. Futures for Brent crude on the Intercontinental Exchange closed at just over $35 a barrel, up more than 7%. Korea's trade minister urged business leaders today to step up investment to revive the country's slowing exports. Speaking during a meeting with the heads of Korea's top 30 groups, Minister Joo Hyung-hwan noted how exports fell sharply in January. Outbound shipments stumbled 18.5% last month after falling every month last year on the back of slowing global growth and low oil prices. He said Korea needs to strengthen its key industries, diversify its industrial portfolio into high-value sectors, and look for new growth engines. The minister pledged that the government will boost its deregulation efforts so private sector investment kicks in quickly and creates more jobs. In less than a month since Korea's new economic team led by Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho launched operations, it has laid out a new set of measures to prop up the economy. But the stimulus package this time only marks the beginning of more to come, as the country faces slumping exports and feeble domestic consumption. And today, Arirang News Hwang Jie joins us in the studio to tell us more. So Jie, the government already pulled up additional stimulus package last year, so how are things different this time?
Last year, the economy was hit hard by the MERS outbreak that dragged down spending, and because of that, the stimulus back then included an extra budget. So the focus was more on boosting sentiment in the face of unexpected uncertainties. This time, there's no additional money poured into the economy. In large, we can sum up the latest stimulus in 3 points. First and foremost is the expanded amount that the government has promised to front load in the first quarter of this year, which is roughly $5 billion. The government expects the extra injection to boost the country's growth rate by 0.2 percentage points over that period. The amount of state funds set aside in the first 3 months to support local companies will also be raised by $12.5 billion. The additional policy financing will focus on helping exporters. And so the total amount of increased fiscal spending to shore up the economy during the first quarter stands at more than $17 billion. Now, the last pillar puts emphasis on stimulating spending. The government pledged to extend a tax cut for automobile purchases to June, originally set to expire last year. While consumption has shown signs of a pickup recently thanks to government-led major sales events, some experts are concerned that spending could flatline early this year as the effect of these measures further weaken.
Then why are we not looking into the option of drawing up a supplementary budget again at a time when exports are falling like crazy?
It's true that the country's traditional growth engine is losing steam, as you just mentioned, plunging plunging by the biggest margin in over 6 years last month and posting its 13th straight month of decline. And that was, in fact, a major point of concern among economic policymakers that led to the introduction of this fresh stimulus. But with the country also facing concerns of worsening fiscal soundness, Professor Yoon Chang-yeon at University of Seoul, also the former head of the Korea Institute of Finance, says if the country were to introduce another supplementary budget, it should only be done if absolutely necessary.
If the Zika virus takes a toll on the local economy, or if any other uncertainty like the MERS outbreak or the Seol ferry disaster emerges and puts a dent in domestic demand, then the government should pump in extra money. But that should be the last resort used in emergency situations.
And Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho has been emphasizing that the focus should now be on structural reforms and creating new jobs, making it unlikely that it will come up with another supplementary budget this year. And in fact, today he again emphasized that there will be no extra budget.
Now, despite the government's drive for structural reforms that are long-term measures, there are still calls for short-term measures like a further rate adjustment by the BOK. Are we expecting to see an adjustment in the key interest rate this month by the BOK?
Well, the market is still divided whether a rate cut is going to come this month or next month, but the consensus is that the market is expecting another cut this year, or specifically in the first half of this year. Such forecasts gained more traction after the Bank of Japan jumped into more monetary easing, joining the negative rates club to ensure the price competitiveness of local exporters in times of weak global demand. Of course, analysts say it won't be easy for the Bank of Korea to stay put with the current interest rate of 1.5%.
It's inevitable for Korea to take part in the so-called currency war involving countries like Japan and China, Korea's main export rivals. Although the rate itself may be sufficiently low, expectations will mount for the BOK to cut the rate further to prop up the economy.
Now, there are growing concerns about sluggish recovery momentum, and I heard that the government is gearing up for another stimulus package. Tell us more about that.
Yes, the stimulus will focus on boosting investment and removing excessive regulations to spur job creation in new markets like biohealth. The government also plans to foster new service industries that work in line with technological advancements and an increase in income levels. The package will be laid out after one of the country's biggest national holidays, Lunar New Year's, which is, of course, next week.
So we'll definitely look forward to that. Thank you so much for coming in today, Ji-hye.
You're welcome.
China's economic slowdown has been well documented, as have the reasons for it. One of the driving forces behind China's explosive growth over the past couple of decades has been its gigantic workforce. But as our Eunice Kim tells us, those golden days seem to be over.
For the first time in 25 years, China's economy failed to grow more than 7% last year. For years, China has been propelled by a vast source of cheap workers, unmatched anywhere in the world. But times are changing. In fact, the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences says China's so-called demographic bonus is over. Demographic bonus refers to a country's economic growth potential when the working age population is larger than the non-working age of 14 and younger and 65 and older. In 2013, China's working age group peaked at more than 1 billion. But since then, the figure has been heading south. By contrast, the number of elderly Chinese is rising fast. Their numbers surged by more than 12 million over the course of 2 years to nearly 144 million in 2015. The trend is adding to concerns about the slowdown in China. Some global investment banks forecast China's growth will slip below 6% this year. The slowdown is already impacting the Korean economy, which is heavily dependent on exports to China. Korea's working age population is also projected to contract due to the nation's chronically low birth rate. Based on figures from Statistics Korea, the number will peak at 37 million this year. But it'll start to sharply decrease from 2020 when the baby boomer generation enters post-retirement. Some experts say the aging trend combined with slowing domestic consumption and uncertainties overseas means Korea's future growth potential looks dim. Moody's forecasts Korea's growth rate next year will be around 2.5%, on par with that of the US and Britain. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
Well, listen in, all you car lovers out there. There are going to be big discounts and other incentives offered by Korean automakers to local consumers, with hopes of recovering from their weak sales in January. This comes as the government decided to lower the individual consumption tax on cars again after a temporary tax reduction expired in December. The policy, which lowers the tax on auto purchases from 5% to 3.5%, starts immediately and will last through June. In addition to the tax reduction, Hyundai Motor is offering additional discounts of up to $900 on some of its most popular models, including its Grandeur sedan. The tax cut does not apply to foreign brands, but a number of companies have announced their own discount options for Korean customers. It's the country's tradition on the Lunar New Year holiday Seol for older family members to hand out crisp new bills to younger members after they offer a traditional bow along with greetings for the new year. But this demand is costing Korea's central bank millions of dollars. Our Lee Joo-young has more.
Every year around this time before Korea's Lunar New Year holiday Seol, banks nationwide get busier, filling up with people who are there for the same purpose, swapping out old notes with new ones to honor the holiday tradition of handing out money to younger family members. So it's no surprise that during times like this, when fresh, crisp notes are the preferred choice, the net value of newly issued money swells. For example, last year, during the 10 business days leading up to the holiday, $4.3 billion worth of cash was produced, making up about 22% of the total amount of money printed for the whole year. But what has the Bank of Korea worried is the higher costs that come with printing new money. The central bank says it spent about $119 million on turning out new money last year, up 18.5% from the previous year. $74.4 million went to producing new bills and $44.6 million to minting new coins. The hike is partially attributed to the greater demand for 500 won coins from smokers who have found themselves in need of more loose change to pay for adjusted cigarette prices. Facing higher demand and steeper costs of printing, the BOK has launched a nationwide campaign to encourage people to use clean but old money for the Seol holiday. Lawmakers are also trying to help cut back on related costs by recently passing a revised bill that slaps higher penalties on those who deliberately damage coins and notes in their possession. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
And that wraps it up for today, but we'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. So don't forget to tune in then. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye for now.